it's just an example. Purdue losing to Fresno State is okay. We still win the Big Ten West. For me,
Billy Napier gets fired. I'm just kidding.
really the best time of the year. I will be seated watching the Red Zone for 7 hours on Sunday. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a new episode of Backyard Banter. Johnny, James, Tanner. We are back. Some say there's a big game on Monday. It's a big helmet game. The biggest helmet game, I think, Ohio State, Notre Dame. I mean, two just classic helmets. And we're going to predict it. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to predict it right now. James, you're going to go last. Tanner, who's going to win the national championship?
The Ohio State Buckeyes are going to win the national championship. Can't believe I'm saying this because honestly, I think Notre Dame is a better head coach. Like, if we're talking 60 minutes, who's going to have a better game plan? Who's going to make the better adjustments in the game? I would trust Marcus Freeman over Ryan Day, but this Ohio State team just has way too much talent. They're way too good, way too athletic. I think this Ohio State team has a good mix of both, just being physical in the trenches, and they can beat you in the trenches, but they also have that athleticism. They have the playmakers outside. I think Notre Dame is physical. I don't think Notre Dame is going to have the Ohio State type playmakers and athletes on the outside, on the perimeter. So we'll see. Like you said, Johnny, when Notre Dame plays on their terms, they're going to win. So what type of ball game are we going to get? Is it going to be kind of a fast-paced, higher scoring? Is Ohio State just going to come out and dominate Notre Dame on the line of scrimmage, or is Notre Dame going to punch Ohio State in the face? We'll see what happens. But ultimately, I'm going to take the team that's more talented. I do think Notre Dame's better coached, but at the end of the day, this Ohio State team has, maybe 10 first-round picks on this roster right now. They're the real deal. This is a borderline NFL team. So, the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter the other day where Ryan Day said he wanted his team peaking in December, January. And weirdly enough, he said that last offseason, and that's exactly what his team did. We can argue about the playoff format. If Ohio State loses to Michigan in another game in the Big Ten, some could argue, some Ohio State fans will say this season is a disappointment because they lost to Michigan, even if they won a national championship, which is kind of crazy to think. But Tanner, you're right. If Notre Dame plays on their terms, they can win any game. But part of Notre Dame playing on their terms is turning over Will Howard, is special teams causing havoc like they have in this entire playoff. No one has had better special teams this playoff than Notre Dame. And people always say it's 3 phases. That's a pretty massive phase. That's part of the 3 phases. But there's just so much that Ohio State has to do wrong, in my opinion, for Notre Dame to win. Notre Dame is going on a very thin margin of error in this game. I think they have to hold Ohio State to 21 points or less in order to win this game. I don't think there's a world where, unless you have multiple defensive touchdowns or special teams touchdowns like you did against Georgia, where you can score on this Ohio State defense multiple times. But Ohio State's defensive line, for me, is the story. They lead the playoff in sacks. I think they have 16 sacks coming into this in the national championship just in the playoff alone. That's how dominant that they've been. And Notre Dame has some injury issues on the offensive line. Left tackle is out. And James, I think there's another guy that might be questionable along the O-line as well that might be out. Notre Dame has a fantastic defense. The 2 best safeties in the country are going to be on the field in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which never should have been built. The Georgia Dome will always be the greatest venue in college sports, I swear. But I'm going Ohio State. I don't know if I'll pick them to cover, but like I said, I'm going to pick Ohio State because there's just too much that Notre Dame has to do 100% right. They basically have no margin for error in this game in order to win. Now, can we have a Will Howard game where he throws 3 picks and has a fumble? Absolutely. He's shown it, but he's also playing his best football of his life the last 4 games or 3 games. So I'll lean Ohio State. I think it's close and very similar to the Texas game. I think it's going to be close and Ohio State kind of pulls away late, but I just don't think Notre Dame has enough explosive plays on offense to win this game.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you would have told me on whatever day it was, I was in Chicago with Tanner watching Notre Dame play NIU, and I just watched the Cubs play the Yankees. I'm like, this is the worst day ever, right? Tanner saw me. It was bad. And to think that, Notre Dame has a chance to win a natty, it's fantastic. It's a great feeling. Obviously you boys know how it feels to be in this game and it's cool. So I don't disagree with anything you guys said. This game could be a blowout, and there's only one team that can blow out the other, unfortunately, right? Like Notre Dame, offensively, sure, they've blown out teams, but we're talking about bad teams, right?
Talking
So
about
like Notre
Purdue,
Dame,
baby.
well, I wasn't even gonna
No,
say it.
I wasn't.
I wasn't even gonna say it,
I
I
but
wasn't
wanted to
gonna
say
say
it.
it
and I
either.
really wasn't. I was thinking like Navy and all
Oh,
those
I never
teams.
disrespect our armed forces. I will
Well,
disrespect them
yeah,
too.
that's true. I just dig on Purdue a little too much, but here's the basically the gist of it, and I'm a little confused because I think if Notre Dame goes man, I think they could be in trouble. I think Notre Dame has some of the best corners in the game, but I think it doesn't matter because Ohio State is so skilled on that level, on every level. Frankly, they can run it, they can throw it. I mean, they've got a great team. Like this is Johnny. You said this is the most talented team you've seen in a while, and I mean they're putting on a show right now. So yeah, I mean why can't we say that? Um, I just don't know. If they go man, I think Notre Dame could be in trouble. But at the same time, I don't know why they'd go man, right? If you watch the games that Ohio State struggled in, it's Texas, right? Penn State. Like, what did those defenses do? They ran like a catch zone. I mean, that's kind of what they were running. And so I trust Notre Dame. I trust Marcus Freeman. He's got a heck of a mind. That's why we extended him. That's why he's in conversations to maybe even get a NFL coaching job, like interview at least. I don't think that's the case. I really hope he doesn't leave Notre Dame. I really hope he doesn't go to the Bears. Frankly, I don't think he's an NFL coach right now. So if we can tie that into the Bears, talk a little bit. But I think Notre Dame, if they're going to win this football game, they have to play a perfect game on both sides. I think Riley Leonard has to play the greatest game he's ever played his entire life. He's going to have to run the ball 15 times for over 100 yards. He's going to have to make some throws, which he kind of did against Penn State, but he's going to have to be more consistent. I mean, the fact that our longest throw of the year happened against Penn State and it was a busted coverage where two guys fell, right? Great play. It won us the football game, but Riley Leonard's going to have to be special. That's the truth of the matter. I trust Notre Dame's defense to kind of settle down Will Howard, get home, kind of make his life more miserable. But either way, my concern is Notre Dame only wins this game if they hold Ohio State to 17 points, like 20 points. Like there's no way we can't play a shootout against Ohio State. Notre Dame cannot go in a shootout, and that can't be the case. And the problem with Ohio State is they can put points up early and they can do it fast. And if you go down 14-0, 21-0 to a team like this, you're not coming back. I mean, you're just not doing it. So there's a path for Notre Dame to win the national championship. There absolutely is. Will Howard has shown that he's not the most consistent quarterback. He's playing great as of late. I said it when he beat Oregon. I don't think he could play a better game than he did. And I trust Notre Dame, and I trust that they have enough film on Will Howard and Ibuka and all those guys to kind of dial it in. I mean, Smith was very limited against Texas, so there's definitely a recipe there. But on the flip side, Notre Dame offense is going to have to play perfect. And I don't know what that entails. I think it entails Riley Leonard taking over the game early. I was listening to a podcast today. They were talking about if you're Notre Dame's defense, you make them run to start the game, right? Because what Ohio State's been doing is they've been just killing you in the passing game and then running it down your throat the rest of the game. Flip that. Let them run. If they can establish the run early, then whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But the glaring thing for me is Notre Dame offense, and Riley Leonard's going to have to play perfect. He's going to have to play the best game he's ever had in a football jersey. But I definitely think there's an opportunity for Notre Dame to win a national championship. I'm excited for Monday night. I'm going home to watch it with my dad. Like super excited stuff. The last time this has happened is frankly the 2016 Cubs World Series, where the sports just means more to people like us, and so. It's really, really exciting, and I'm excited. I really hope it's a good game for all fourth quarters because I was texting these boys like that Penn State Notre Dame game. I was watching it with my grandparents, so I had to be a little PG, not yelling at the TV too much. And I mean, it's an exciting time. So I hope the Natties lives up to the hype. I can't wait for a 4.5-hour football game. And yeah, I'm gonna pick Notre Dame because I think there's an opportunity to win. And if you'd be silly if I was gonna pick Ohio State, but Notre Dame's gonna have to play a perfect game to win this national championship. So
A very, very, very fine line. But we'll see. Ohio State had a lot of holes all year. Their O line is still, I think, an area of weakness. A lot of shuffling around there. But there we go. Our last college football prediction of the year. Sad. Very,
yeah.
very, very sad.
Who knows? Next year we might be talking about the Boilermakers in this game. I mean, it's
I think that would be some
you
sort of
never know.
miracle if that happened.
I had to
But,
throw Purdue in there at least some point.
There's a 0% chance that happens.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can confirm.
but
That's
anyway, we'll move on to the NFL. Obviously, I was heartbroken this weekend when the Bucks lost, and James was here. James came to visit me. We're watching it together, and I told James the reason why the Bucks loss stinks. Not that I thought the Bucks could win a Super Bowl. I thought they could make an NFC Championship. Was the fact that they played better and lost. So whenever that happens, it's tough. When it's right there and it's tough. With that being said, the divisional round is here. I had to throw in one last comment about the Bucks. But the divisional round is here. We'll just go straight in order that the game's going to go. So Houston is in Kansas City for the first game. It's at, I think, 4:30 Eastern on ESPN, ABC. With that being said, I will make this a quick prediction. I think Kansas City is going to roll here. I don't really see a path for – that's not true. There's always a path for these teams to win because this is in college. The margin, the skill gap is smaller in the NFL. But, I mean, Kansas City's defense has been unbelievable this year. I mean, who do you trust more in the playoffs than Mahomes and Kelsey? Who?
Nobody.
Nobody. There's no
Not a soul.
you trust more. So, I mean, we can hate on the Texans all we want. We can hate on the AFC South. CJ Stroud has been an NFL quarterback for 2 years, and he has 2 playoff wins. So that's still, you have to show some sort of respect there. But I think in this game, they'll feel the loss of Nico Collins or not Nico Collins, Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs in this game. So give me the Chiefs by 10 plus, where I think the line's 9.5. So give me the Chiefs by 10 plus. T, what about you?
I actually I want to pick the Texans. Like, I do actually see a path for the Texans winning this game, and that's just, I think the Chiefs are lucky. Like, the fact that this team is 16-1 is, what is it?
15-2. Yeah.
I mean, they could very easily be 9-8. Like, you look at some of these plays that they've won on this year. But again, I would be an idiot to sit here and pick against Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid at home in the playoffs. So for that reason, I'm going to pick the Chiefs. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory why I'm picking the Chiefs. But I do think the Texans are going to be competitive. I think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I hate the Texans because they beat the Chargers, and me and Nick Kosich were big on the Chargers when we were in Utah. So that was a frustrating game to watch. I frankly didn't think the Texans had a chance. It was just simply based off injuries. I mean, but I guess I'm wrong, and if Justin Herbert wants to keep throwing pick sixes, it's fine. But I agree with what you said, Tanner. Like, I want to always pick against the Chiefs, but in this scenario, it's like, yeah, they're not losing this game. They're winning this game. I agree with what Johnny said, 10 plus. And man, I hope I can pick against them the next game, which I will. No matter who wins that game, this next game, I'm picking against the Chiefs for sure.
Hopefully we can get that game. That'd be that would be cinema. I forgot who I was talking to about this. The Chiefs' run right now feels so similar to the Patriots, where they'd get the 1 seed, but besides last year, they would play not a crappy team, but like a below average team playoff wise compared to Buffalo and Baltimore in the divisional, and they just have to really win 1 game at home to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, how many times did Tom Brady play like the Chargers in the divisional round, or a bad version of the Ravens team in the divisional round? This is just so similar to that. And you got to shout out greatness. But the next game is the Commanders going to Detroit. This is a fun game. A lot of points in this one. But with that being said, I think this is just my hate against the Commanders right now. But at the end of the day, the last 5 games they've won on the last play. That's not sustainable, especially with a rookie quarterback. Against the Bucs, their running backs in the run game did not get going whatsoever. It was basically all on Jaden Daniels. And I just trust – I don't know if there's another team besides the Chiefs that I trust more at home right now than the Lions. You want to talk about a place that's going to be rocking. Ford Field is going to be rocking for this divisional round game on Saturday night. So I'm going to take Jared Goff. I'm going to take the Lions here. I think the Commanders run out of magic. I mean, I predicted them to make the playoffs in the regular season. I kind of saw that Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud effect, but I think it ends here. I got the Lions. I think if there is a game that could get out of hand this entire weekend, I think it's this game more than the Chiefs game. I think the Lions could put it on the Commanders here. But there's also a way. This is where you're saying it. So I think the Lions have a better chance to blow out the Commanders than the Chiefs do the Texans. But I think the Commanders have a better chance to beat the Lions than the Texans do to beat the Chiefs, if that makes sense. But with that being said, because you can't, Jaden Daniels is just so special. I mean, a few of the plays he made in the Bucs game is otherworldly. But, like I said, 5 straight games to play, last play deciding the game. I think his luck runs out. Give me the Lions, Detroit.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Lions here. The Commanders are the luckiest team in the NFL. They've been lucky all season. Real quickly, I've never wanted to see a player fall off more than I do Jaden Daniels to fall off next year. I mean, it's, again, like, whatever. Jaden Daniels had a better rookie season. But all these redrafts that have people like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix better than Caleb Williams, like they would take him, like, get out of here. And I can't wait for the future when all these redrafts just look stupid. And it's great that Ben Johnson is on the Lions. I think he's an unbelievable offensive coordinator. He's a great coach in the NFL. Pulling for Ben Johnson. I want him to get some Super Bowl experience this playoff run. So give me the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, there's not a world where I ever pick the Commanders from the time, and I think I said it last pod, from the time that I got in an argument with a Commanders fan at the Bears game to physically watching the emotion of a doink happen to Johnny. Like, that was tough. That was a tough watch. I mean, he doinked it in.
Devastating for the guy behind me.
Yeah, there was a guy sitting behind with a Brady jersey
in
on.
Salt Lake City at the bar we were at with a Tom Brady jersey, just absolutely devastating.
Yeah, he was screaming. He was whatever, and it was a doink.
He wouldn't let Commanders fans sit in the section. It was pretty. Yeah, it was incredible. It was
great. It was great, and I hate the Commanders, frankly, and I agree with what Tanner said. Like, I think Jane Daniels is a great quarterback. I loved him when he was in college, but he's not better than Caleb Williams. So let's just get the downfall now. Let's him go like 11 for 27 against the Lions, and I think the Lions win this one by 20. Frankly, I think like 42-17 final. That's my prediction. I tell you what, like, I was really hoping that Detroit and Green Bay would maybe have to play together just so I could, like, tell my friends who are Packers fans, like, going into Detroit is so hard, and they're like, whatever. I'm like, they now have playoff football culture. Like, that place is probably unbelievable to watch a playoff football game. So, Lions 42-17. That's probably the final. So if you're a betting man, I'd probably go to FanDuel and bet Jack score 42-17. But you do you.
Well, the thing with the Commanders, they completely control time possession against the Bucs, and then they won the turnover battle. I think it's going to be much harder to control the time possession against the Lions. But we'll move on to Sunday. And the NFC is so weird. Like, I don't know if I can see any of these NFC teams winning a Super Bowl, maybe out of the Lions. But Rams, Eagles here. It's the first game on Sunday. This is the one I had. That's not true. The other game is harder to pick, but this one's tough. Like, Philly's like a 6.5 point favorite. But in this Rams team, I mean, think about the Rams. We hardly ever talk about the Rams. The Rams won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, then were really bad the next year. And they did a pseudo rebuild in the last 24 months. And it's been incredible. They've hit on almost every single one of their draft picks. Like Puka, fifth rounder, right? Cooper Kupp was way back. He was on the first Super Bowl team. He's the second rounder. And you look at their defense, they got 2 undrafted guys starting. Cam Kitchens, their safety, 3rd round pick. One of their starting linebackers, undrafted free agent. They're paying one guy on their defense if there's a free agent that starts like $1 million. Like, it's incredible. And then obviously you got Jared Verse, who's going to be Defensive Player of the Year, and the other guy from Florida State, defensive tackle, right next to him. It's really impressive what the front office and Sean McVay has done with this team. And I think they're going to beat the Eagles. I think they're going to go into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles. I just do not trust Jalen Hurts. There's just something about it. James and I were watching the game, and you look up and he's like 11 of 22, with 73 yards and a rushing touchdown. And they have Saquon, who's the best running back on the planet right now, over Derrick Henry. I'd take him. And you got those 2 receivers. There's no reason why Jalen Hurts shouldn't be producing more. And that youngness from the Rams secondary could come back to bite them. I can see the Eagles blowing them out, but Give me Matt Stafford. It is a cold weather game. Matt Stafford hasn't fared too well in those too much of his career, but there's just something in my gut that the Rams are going to somehow win this game. Tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider you.
I think you're crazy.
Yeah,
But
I
Tanner can
I
go.
wanted to be
I
a little
mean,
bit different.
I don't think you're like crazy, but I think you're a little bit crazy. Sean McVay.
Such a
Sean
weird
McVay is
way
a
to
great.
say it.
Sean McVay is a great head coach. Matt Stafford's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So like I understand it from that perspective. But Jalen Hurts is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. I would have to agree with you there. He is in a perfect situation. He's a good head coach. He is a top 3 offensive line. He has maybe the best defense, and he has Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, AJ Brown, um, Devontae Smith, Jahan Dotson, like just absolute studs on the perimeter. Like he is in a can't lose situation. So Jalen Hurts should be an All Pro every year, and he's not. He is so overrated. But um, the Eagles are way too good to lose at home. I think the Eagles, like honestly, Eagles and Lions is going to be the hardest game for me to pick this postseason because I think both of them can win a Super Bowl. I think both of them have very similar teams, just in the layout of their players and where all their talent is on the roster. So I'm going to take the Eagles. I think the Eagles win by 10 plus. I think the Packers are better than the Rams. So
Yeah. Yeah. I got the Eagles. I don't know for sure. I think Johnny and I were talking about it this weekend. I want to say I predicted like a Ravens Eagles Super Bowl preseason. I got to look back and look at that, and I could be way off. I probably said the Bears were going to be in the Super Bowl.
That was 10.
Well, no, it's Tanner. But no, like I think Philly is really good, and I look at that game against the Packers, and we were all watching it, and like it's kind of one of those games where I'm pretty sure Tanner talked about how like Georgia lost that game more than Notre Dame won the game, right? And I think Green Bay was so bad that Philly just had to be competent enough to kind of just win that game. And like it got a little interesting there for a little while. And then Jalen Hurts kind of made a pretty decent drive at the end of the game to kind of seal it. I think Jalen Hurts, you're not going to get a game like that again. I agree with what you're saying about overrated, but I think he's also more than capable to do it. So I'm excited for this game. I just I wasn't inspired watching the Rams beat the Vikings. Truthfully, I mean, yeah, it wasn't much of a game, but I think a few things went for the Rams early that kind of just put the Vikings at bay. I think the Packers were awful. I think they suck. I think Jordan Love is awful. So I think that's why the Eagles advanced. And so I think the Eagles. I think the Eagles win this game, and I agree with what Tanner said. I think the country deserves a Lions versus Eagles a game because what a great game that could be. Two electric fan bases going at each other for a trip to the Super Bowl would be pretty awesome.
two teams that win in the trenches. Like that's where their game plan lies every single Sunday. Is defensive line, offensive line go dominate, and then you add in that both teams have so many weapons on the perimeter. Like Jameer Gibbs is a stud. Saquon Barkley, maybe the best running back in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown's a stud. Well,
Yeah.
you got AJ Brown. Then you got
Right.
Laporta and Goddard. Like these teams are set up, they're built very similarly, and that's why I want to see it.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And the last game, and rightfully so, they put it as the last game Sunday night-ish, just on CBS. But Sunday night, last game of the divisional round, Ravens Bills. No game I have been more excited for in the NFL to watch this season than this game. The first thing to me is how much is Josh Allen going to run in this game? In big games, he tends to use his legs a bunch. And the Bills still don't have that go-to receiver, but neither do the Ravens. You know, like this is just such an interesting game. I don't know what the status of Zay Flowers is. I don't know how well he's progressing. He must be not pretty far off, but like it must have been a pretty substantial. I remember I saw the play. It looked pretty bad against the Steelers. A pretty substantial injury to miss a playoff game. You know, the Ravens have been a top 5 defense since like week 11 or whatever the stat is. They figure something out. They're playing more Kyle Hamilton, basically cover everything up. You're one of the best safeties in football. And the Bills, I think the Bills are more Josh Allen dependent and the Ravens are Lamar Jackson dependent. And for that reason, I'm going to pick the Ravens to go into Buffalo and win. because I think Lamar has just a little bit more around him. And I think the Bills depend on Josh Allen too much. And if Josh Allen throws a pick or if Josh Allen is just a little bit off, it costs the Bills way more than if Lamar Jackson's a little bit off for the Ravens. So give me Derrick Henry, give me Lamar Jackson, give me Kyle Hamilton in that defense, vastly improving to go into Buffalo and win Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know who I want to pick.
It's hard.
Because, like you said, this is an unbelievable matchup. At the end of the day, I think Josh Allen at home I like better than Lamar Jackson on the road. But then, like, I don't know, what's the weather going to be? Like, is it going to be snowing?
It's going to be cold. No, I think
Probably
it's
cold as
snowing.
hell.
Snowing. I saw this snowing in Philadelphia, just cold in Buffalo.
Just cold in Buffalo. Okay, so that kind of changes things a little.
Mother Nature, flip that because we need it opposite. We need
Need
a snow.
opposite? Okay. I'll
Yeah.
take the Bills. I'm probably not going to make my pick until right before my real pick until before the game. But right now, I'll ride with Josh Allen. I think he's the best player on the planet right now. I think Lamar Jackson is just a hair below him right now, just a hair. And give me Josh Allen at home.
Yeah, I mean it's a great game. Like this is awesome. Like
Simba.
this is awesome. And like I said, whoever wins this game, I'm picking to beat the Chiefs, right? No matter what. So, but I'm gonna make it pretty short here. All right, the MVP is gonna win this game. Therefore, the Baltimore Ravens are gonna win this football game because Lamar Jackson's an MVP. I understand Josh Allen's had a heck of a year, but Lamar Jackson has just kind of been stepped over. Like Lamar Jackson's having an incredible year on both of his abilities. He's throwing the ball much better this year. I mean, he's still a threat with his legs. And I loved the Ravens last year, and you're telling me you're going to go get Derrick Henry? Sure. Yeah, I'm going to pick you, and I'm going to pick you to go very far in the playoffs. What a great game. It's going to be close. It's going to come down to the wire. Someone's either going to make a field goal or miss a field goal. Like, it's going to be great. But yeah, give me the MVP. The Baltimore Ravens are moving on to probably take on the Chiefs in the AFC Championship.
Very rarely do we get a Super Bowl level matchup in the divisional round.
Yeah.
But that's what this is. I remember back in 2021 when the Bucs lost to the Rams in the divisional round. You guys remember that game? Crazy game. You know, Matthew Stafford made that unreal throw to Cooper Kupp. They kicked a field goal. They won. Like this is that kind of game. Like that. Like both of those teams could have won a Super Bowl. Both of these teams can win a Super Bowl. I don't think you can say that about any other matchup in any of these divisional rounds.
No,
going forward.
Not at all.
But we're all huge college basketball fans, and college basketball is starting to ramp up a little bit. I know this year more than any other year. I've watched more college football than ever before, or college basketball than ever before. I feel like I'm incredibly tuned in to almost every conference. I've watched almost every conference except for some of the Big 12 teams, or every team in every conference except for some of the Big 12 teams. So we're going to go through them, and we're not going to pick the Mountain West because I haven't watched the Mountain West enough, even though we're missing out on some good basketball. Utah State lost last night. They're a good team.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I've been tuned into the Mountain West, and some of the way these games are ending is just
It's cinema. It's cinema. It's cinema.
Just instant classics every night in the Mountain West.
That's what mediocre basketball gives you, Tanner. That's what mediocre basketball.
Anyway, we're gonna give you guys our conference champions right now, mid-season. So we're gonna go Big Ten.
They're all gonna be right.
We're gonna go ACC and we're gonna go SEC. We're gonna start in the ACC first because I've never seen the ACC this down. Like it's pretty incredible. Because you always think like, oh, the ACC will have 5-6 teams in, and you look, it's like, okay, there's Duke. Duke can win a national championship, and then you go down, and it's like, who's the second best team? Is it Louisville? Louisville's been bad for 6 years. Is it North Carolina? North Carolina doesn't have a big man that can do anything. Is it Clemson? Clemson is probably like an 8-9 seed right now if March started. So this one's the easiest one. It's Duke. Duke's going to the ACC, barring some ridiculous collapse.
For sure, or upset, like major upset, for sure.
Yeah, I don't want to waste any time on the ACC. It's Duke.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's do it. Move on.
Anyway, we'll save our two conferences for last, so therefore we'll go over to the Big 12. Iowa State can win a national championship. I've been on Iowa State since they lost to Auburn and Maui. I really like their team. They got Gilbert and Jones, and obviously Jones went for 25 last night against Kansas, and that was a little bit ridiculous. With that being said, there's no team more talented in the Big 12 than Kansas. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's something internal. You guys watched a lot of AJ Storr last year. I don't know what is going on with him at Kansas. They paid him a lot of money to go be
I'm glad he didn't go to Illinois.
to not be a 7-point per game scorer like he is right now. And then Arizona is playing really good ball right now. I mean, they have really turned it on. But if you're gonna put a gun in my head, who's going with the Big 12? I'm gonna pick Iowa State because you guys know I love teams at guard, and Iowa State guards you, but they have more offense this year than they did last year. They're one of the best offensive teams in the country this year. When last year it felt like they couldn't even buy a basket at times. Another team that no one was talking about is Houston. I mean, I feel like I never see anything about Houston. Granted, I've only watched one of their games. I haven't watched enough of Houston to have too broad of an opinion on them. But any team coached by Coach Sampson is going to be in any conversation for a championship. He's one of my favorite coaches in college basketball. But with that being said, I'm going to go Iowa State. But my second, if I had to pick a second team right now, it would be Arizona. Arizona is playing as well as almost any team in the country. I mean, they just ran through Baylor the other night at home, and I'm not in on Baylor whatsoever, but Baylor's still a good team. So I'm gonna pick Iowa State, but if I had to pick a second team, it would be Arizona.
Yeah, I'm also gonna pick Iowa State. I've been peeking kind of the schedules a little bit because the schedules do matter for regular season titles. And Iowa State has it, I would say, much easier than Houston and Arizona right now. And Kansas, I know will be there, but Kansas also has a tough schedule. Iowa State, you're right, man. They sit down, they guard. They are so good out of timeouts too. Like I haven't watched them a ton, but when I have watched them, when a team comes out of a timeout and they execute a play, and then they go down and get a stop, and then they come down and execute a play, that is coaching. And they have a really good head coach because that's what they do every time. That's what they do every game that I've watched them play, even last year. Like they're really well coached. They sit down, they guard, they're tough. They're even like we're not used to seeing Iowa State teams have this much athleticism. Like they have some legit athletes on this roster. So I like Iowa State to win the Big 12. The Cyclones can win a national championship. They can make the Final Four in San Antonio. I agree. Iowa State's going to take home the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Iowa State, like from last year, it was kind of like I think we all kind of knew they were going to be a good team, but I don't think we all thought they were going to be as good as they were last year. And like Johnny said, they just got better, right? They just got better from last year. They can score it at a better rate this year. When you look at the Big 12, the most glaring thing for me is just how well coached these teams are. Like the four teams that we just mentioned, Arizona, Kansas, Houston, Iowa State. Four teams that are coached incredibly well. And so for me, I think it comes down to two teams. I think it comes down to Houston, and I think it comes down to Iowa State. I'm gonna pick Houston to be a little different than you two. I like Iowa State a lot, but I think Houston's kind of like one of those teams that maybe doesn't get enough coverage, right? And a lot of people maybe just kind of forget about. But I think Houston, man, they got some dudes. And I just like them coming out of this conference. Again, it's a great conference coaching wise, so I think all four of those teams can win it, undoubtedly. But I'm gonna pick Houston here.
Yeah, the Big 12 was widely considered the best conference in college basketball for the SEC is going nuclear this year.
Yeah.
And we'll go to the SEC. I think the SEC has 6 teams that can make a second weekend. I was on Ole Miss before the season. Chris Beard is an awful human being, but he's a heck of a basketball coach. And what he's done at Ole Miss has been, frankly, pretty incredible from a team that is not known for basketball whatsoever, except when Marshall Henderson was there and was going berserk. But there you go. Yeah, they beat Florida. I'll never forget that. But I think Ole Miss is a huge sleeper here. And then obviously you got the big dogs. You got Tennessee, you got Florida, you got Alabama, you got Auburn. I think all 4 of those teams can make a Final Four. Obviously, my opinion didn't change on Florida when they lost to Missouri, but I always thought Florida's floor was very high. With those guards, I thought that they had a really hard time to get upset. And granted, did it take Missouri shooting 63% from 3 in the first half to do it? Yeah. But the thing that scared me with Florida is they still should have won that game. They're down 19 in the first half. They should have came all the way back and won. But they had a lack of effort plays, and it seemed like a lot of finger pointing. So I'm mildly concerned about Florida. Let's see how they come out against Texas this weekend. I just wanted to quickly give a quick Florida thing. Alabama just lost to Ole Miss. A lot of people are selling the Alabama stock. I'm going to pick up Alabama stock. I think Alabama's going to win the SEC. Look, they have too much talent. They're too deep. I mean, they're 9 deep. They got the Youngblood kid from USF, And you can just tell he's not in playing shape yet. He came off an injury. He's played the last 6-7 games, and he's gradually getting better. Auburn is a juggernaut. What they're doing, what they did to Mississippi State, who I'm incredibly low on Mississippi State. I did not think they were one of the 15 best teams in the country. What they did to Mississippi State was pretty, that was patriotic. That made me feel good to be an American, seeing Auburn put it on Mississippi State. But I think eventually they are going to drop some games without Broome. Chad Baker-Mazara, by the way, is having like a first-team all-league year. And I don't know why. He's like one of my least favorite basketball players to watch. Seems like a great kid. Seems like a great person. But when I watch him play, it just like angers me. I guess
everyone has those guys.
And I guess that's a compliment to him. And obviously, they got Pettiford, the one who's a stud, the freshman. They got a Georgia Tech transfer that can pull up from 40 consistently. But I also don't think Tennessee can score enough to win a national championship and or win a Final Four or win the SEC. I think any Rick Barnes team is going to be coached very well defensively. But I'm going to buy stock in Alabama right now. They just lost at home. I still trust Nate Oates. I still trust Mark Sears, Grant Nelson. I mean, you can keep going up and down. That roster is stacked. Cliff, the guy from Rutgers, has not produced yet. He can't be any worse than he's been. So I think he'll get a little bit better. But yeah, give me Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, John. I'm going to also buy on Alabama. This was my preseason pick out of the SEC because of how deep they are, the depth, right? Like in a regular season conference race, like you got to have depth. You got to have, if your third, fourth, fifth guys aren't playing well, you got to have 6, 7, 8 come in and be able to produce. And that's what Bama has. Nate Oates, don't like him as a person, but he's a good head coach. I think Alabama – obviously, the SEC is very talented, but I think Alabama's also very seasoned, right? Auburn, I guess, too. But with Janai Broome being out, that injury is tough for them. He's going to be out for a couple weeks, I would imagine, at least. But now that they have a game on film without Janai Broome, teams are going to understand what to expect without him on the floor, how to prepare for Auburn. I think we're going to see Auburn start to struggle in the next week or two, especially as they get into playing some like legit SEC teams in the coming days. And then Tennessee, I think they rebound really well. They're athletic, they defend, but I agree offensively, Tennessee's going to have nights where they only put up 45, 50 points, and that's why they're not going to win a regular season title. Yeah. Florida, their guard plays good. Like their head coach as a coach, not as a person.
Oh, hey, that stuff was dismissed. It was all
allegations.
Okay,
allegations.
Maybe an okay person. I don't know. Yes. But Florida's guard play is going to keep them
guilty.
In place. But I think Bama ultimately has the depth to win a regular season title and to get back to the Final Four for a second straight year. You want to talk about, at least in my opinion, some teams that were in the Final Four a year ago that I think can get back again this year. There's a couple.
I think there's one.
I think there's 3.
NC State and who else?
NC State, UConn, and
Alabama.
Yeah, I don't know. I might say a little hot take here. I think the SEC is a little overrated. I'm starting to watch some SEC ball a lot more because there's a lot of hype around it. And I simply think that SEC basketball is going to kind of turn into SEC football where, sorry, Mom, they beat the shit out of each other all year long. And then next thing you know, like, Mizzou beats Florida, and Florida smokes Tennessee, which, by the way, I got to point this out. I texted Tanner. I mean, I am sniping on Florida. Like, I said Florida was going to beat Tennessee by 10+. They dogged them. I texted Tanner before the Mizzou-Florida game. I'm like, dude, I feel like Florida drops this one at home. Like, I'm sniping them. So,
you're gonna win this weekend? Seems like you're psychic.
No, I got to look at the game. Got to kind of. I've only been paying attention to Monday night. Frankly, Monday night's a big night. But Tennessee, okay, I think Tennessee is going to win the SEC, but I don't think there's a chance in hell they can make it to the Final Four. I think they're going to be one of those teams that's going to be really good in the regular season because they play a lot of games. They play a lot of games at home, right? Exactly. They play a lot of games at their Mackey Arena because I don't know what Tennessee Stadium's called. But they play a lot of games at home, and I think it's a tough place to go in and beat teams. I think it's more than capable, but I think the SEC is going to start beating up on each other. I agree. I would have picked Auburn before this injury, but I'm going to pick Tennessee. But again, my original take is just that I think the SEC is a little overrated. I think we're going to have a lot of good teams that do make it to the second weekend, but I don't know how many teams I look at that can win a national championship, and I know it's hard, it's early, and winning a national championship is really hard. But I just look at this and I just think Tennessee is going to win a regular season conference championship. But that's all I got. That's their ceiling for me, truthfully.
Yeah.
So
One, and I thought about this today because I think about I think about Purdue basketball a lot, and which means I think about college basketball.
no way,
It's
really?
on my mind this time of year, 24/7. But I was thinking about the non-conference this year in college basketball, and the SEC
Yeah.
was so dominant, and I was thinking like, why is that? Because I think the SEC's it might be the best conference, but I think it's overrated. I agree. And here's why I think the SEC had so much success this non-conference cycle this season was because you look at some of the teams that like Purdue played a ton of SEC schools, and Purdue did not fare well. But Purdue lost a lot of pieces from last year, and a lot of the SEC teams returned a lot. So like, I just think that benefited them in the non-conference where they knew what they had coming into the season, and the teams they were playing were still trying to figure things out. And I'm not discrediting the SEC because they did. They went out and played people and they dominated it. But I just think in that aspect, that's a little bit of a reason why the SEC might be overrated. And I also think the brand of basketball that's played in the SEC is different than what's played in March. I think it is so physical and so fast paced in the SEC that when you get down in a winner go home game in March, when there's different officiating crews from different conferences, maybe not as physical, the game's a little bit slower. It's just a different game in March. So I think maybe the brand of SEC basketball is too physical and too fast for postseason basketball. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the SEC is really, really good. I think it is the best conference, but I could see it struggling when it comes to March.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You watch a regular season SEC game. I mean, they kill each other. If you're watching the A&M Kentucky
Yes.
game, I mean, it is
Murder.
brutality.
It's murder.
It's
It's murder.
Yeah, literally.
They would be arrested if they did that on the
They're
street.
manslaughter. What's going on in that game?
Yeah.
But the overrated is always so tricky. It's like, what is it rated? Are you rating it off teams that can make a Final Four? Are you making off teams that are going to be in the NCAA tournament? Because the SEC is going to have double-digit teams in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And I think the bottom of the SEC is better than the bottom of any conference. I mean, we saw South Carolina take Auburn to the wire. We saw Missouri also beat Kansas. They're going to be a tournament team. You know, go into Florida won 16 straight home games before they lost to Missouri. Like that,
Yeah.
They beat some big-time teams at home. But
I like Mizzou. I like Mizzou a lot.
I like the SEC because of its depth. Obviously, it's you could say it's very top heavy, but when it comes down to like again, I think putting teams in NCAA tournament is what matters in terms of how good a conference is, because once you get in the NCAA tournament, it's all about matchups. Like anybody can beat anybody. So how many teams do you have that are good enough to play in March in those winner go home games in the NCAA tournament? And the SEC has the most depth, and that's why it's the best conference. And it'll always be that way for me.
Yeah, and I like that, but I also think the SEC has 4, maybe 5 teams that can make a Final Four. I think Alabama can make a Final Four. I think Auburn can make a Final Four. I think Kentucky can make a Final Four. I think Florida can make a Final Four. You know, you could argue Tennessee if they can make a Final Four. I think Chad Lanier could get high and carry them. I think I'm telling you, Ole Miss is a real sleeper, and I'm glad they beat Alabama because I've been saying it to my guys at work for a little bit now. I mean, I've been on Ole Miss. I've never been on A&M. I've never been on Mississippi State. You know, they kind of A&M at least does this every year where they like hype preseason and never end up being, crazy good. But anyway, we've spent too much time in the SEC. Let's go to the Big Ten. Big Ten is really interesting for me because all of a sudden Michigan State's playing really good ball right now. Purdue's playing really good ball right now. I don't know if there's a better front court in the country than what Michigan has with their 2 7-footers. And obviously, I don't think there's a better I'll say this like this, and I'll upset Tanner. I don't think there's a better draft prospect in the country than what Illinois has. Casper is going to be a top 5 pick most likely, and then I don't think there's a better coach, arguably in the country, than what Purdue has. So I think it comes down to those 5 teams. Tanner, you guys should see our group text. Tanner has been sending just paragraphs about why Purdue is going to win the Big Ten, and Purdue is very good. I don't think Purdue can win a national championship this year. I don't know if I don't think they can win a national championship this year. Can they win the Big Ten? Yeah. I mean, for the last 6 years, they've been just spewing out Big Ten championships. You go farther than that. It's really interesting. And, we decided to do this kind of right before we started filming, or else I would have done a deeper dive into Purdue's schedule to kind of see where do they go, Tanner, do they go at Michigan State, at Illinois?
They play Michigan State and Illinois once, and they're both on the road. They play Michigan twice.
Okay, so for that reason, I'm going to pick against Purdue because James is 100% right. Mackey Arena is the best home court in college basketball, and I don't think they will lose there. It'll be very, very difficult for them to lose there. Now, can they split those games on the road? Because really, that's what it takes. What did Townsend say? You win your home games, you win 75% of them on the road, you're going to win your conference. So I'm not going to pick Purdue, though. I'm going to be spicy, man. I really like Michigan State. I love Tom Izzo. Just to not make either of you mad, I'm not going to pick Illinois or Purdue. So I'm going to go with Michigan State. I mean, they've won 10 in a row now. I mean, they're playing some of the best ball in the country. And because they don't have some polarizing scorer like some of these other places do, they're not being talked about as much. But I mean, give me Michigan State if I had to pick right now.
I don't hate that pick, John. I think if you pick any of those one of those 4 teams, you're in the right neighborhood because it is a 4-team race in the Big Ten. Obviously, could be a little bit biased. I'm going to take Purdue. They're not going to lose a home game. They're not going to lose.
As simple as that. Yeah.
And then you take a look at the other 2 teams they're fighting for a championship with right now. Like they play at Illinois, they play at Michigan State. They've had success in the Breslin Center the last decade. Purdue has won more than they've lost in the Breslin Center, and I think we match up well with Michigan State. I think Illinois is a tough matchup for Purdue this year because Illinois wants to speed it up. They want to go score 100. They want to go win a track meet, and Purdue's going to slow it down. They're gonna dissect you offensively. They're going to sit in a gap defensively. So I think the Illinois matchup is going to be very intriguing. Michigan, we should split with. I think Purdue will lose at Michigan, beat them at home. Other than that, I mean, big game at Oregon this Saturday. If Purdue beats Oregon this Saturday, I'm telling you, take a peek at their schedule. Maybe after we get off this episode, Purdue's not going to lose for a very long time if they beat Oregon on Saturday, which is why I think they're going to win the Big Ten. Because you're going to be sitting there mid-February and they're going to be like 13-1, 12-2. And that's tough. That's going to be tough to beat down the stretch of the season in a Big Ten title race. And it's just, like you said, it's something I've kind of been accustomed to. I'm blessed as a fan to be accustomed to it. Purdue does win the Big Ten, it seems like, almost every year. So it's just kind of the normal, I guess. So I'm going to take Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick Illinois. I think we all knew where I was going to go in that direction. I'm high on them. I really am. I think it's a team that the whole country didn't know what we were going to get. That's why they weren't preseason ranked, which pisses me off still. I mean, it still pisses me off. But I can't blame the country for not knowing, right? It is all new pieces. But they've done a great job. And Illinois is very fun to watch. Like, it's a different style of basketball. I mean, it's just completely different. And so I look at Illinois, and yeah, it's like you lose to Northwestern and you give them their only Big Ten win of the season so far. You lose to USC, but USC is shooting the crap out of the ball these last few games. And it's like, I don't know, Illinois does this with Brad Underwood. It's like Brad Underwood and Marcus Freeman. What do? They let you down in the spots you don't really want to, you go to Oregon and you dub them. You go to Washington, you beat them. And then USC travels to you and you lose that game. And it's like, it's a little concerning. But we play Michigan State, I believe, on Sunday. And that's a big game. It's a huge game, frankly. I think you gotta, if someone's gonna take them off their shelf, it's got to be Illinois. Either way, Tanner, I think you need to buy a ticket for the game down in Champaign, and we need to go watch Purdue, Illinois at the State Farm Center. It'd be my first game there, actually. I've only been to Purdue basketball games, believe it or not. So we need to go to that game. That'd be a great game because I think it could have Big Ten championships implications. So I'm going to pick the Illini. I love what they got. It's a fun brand of basketball they have. They're really fun to watch. All the last 4 seasons they've been fun to watch. But again, I feel like we're getting a new brand. Boswell's starting to actually hoop a lot better. And that was my concern. I was like, okay, we're at this high level, but we have our star transfer that's not even playing well yet. Is he going to ever get there? Now he's getting there. And I think Illinois is a real tough team. And I think they're a team that can make an Elite 8 run. I'm not going to sit here and say they can make it to the Final Four, but I think they're a really, really good team. So I'm going to pick the Illini.
The Big Ten notoriously always performs well in March for the most part. But, I mean, that was a lot of fun. Love talking college basketball. We're going to get a lot more into it as the football part of the season ends. But, yeah, that's all we got for this episode. If you guys made it all the way to the end, leave a like, comment, and send it to someone. There we go. And follow us on TikTok before it gets banned. But
facts. Dang.
But again, if you made it this far, we appreciate you for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.